Oh, let's take a look at some examples from MATLAB/Octave's Lecture 5, Module 5. So in this particular first example here that I've got shown, it's an example of using the if command. So the first line prompts the user to enter a numerical grade for the student, right? And then we do a series of comparisons. If it's greater than 90, letter grade is an A. If means so it wasn't greater, we look to see if it's greater than 80. Right? If it's greater than 80, letter grade is a B, and 70 and 60, and then of course if it's not greater than 60, it's an F because it's something smaller than 60. So that's what's going to happen when we run this one. So let's hit run, and we'll switch over to the command window. And you see there, this is my prompt, enter the numerical grade for the student. So let's enter a 75. So of course that should be a C, and letter grade of C. So let's just pop back to the editor. Let's try another one. And we'll flip to the command window and we'll put in a 90. And notice, right, we used greater than 90. So 90 defaults to B. So there's the one flaw in this particular program is you really want to have greater than or equal to. It's because if you have 90, 80, 70, or 60, you're going to get the lower grade in each of those cases. So there you go. There is the first example from Module 5. So let's look at the second example. So the second example here is for an example of it's also using an if statement and using an and statement at the same time. So we're having the inputting two student scores in two different classes. We're looking to see if, in this case, you notice we actually did use the equal, greater than, or equal to 70. So if they got a 70 or better in both scores, they're going to meet the course requirements. If there is one that's less than 70, then they're not going to meet the course requirements. So let's hit run. We'll switch to the command window. So it asks us the first class, what did they get? Let's put 70. And what do they get in the second course? Let's put 70. The student meets the course requirements. So if with the and statement, the and statement means both have to be true. So let's say the student scored 100 in course 1, but scored a 50 in course 2, the student does not meet the requirements, right? They need to have both and, just like in English, the and has the same meaning. So next one here is an example of using an if statement with an or command. So in this particular case, it's have you completed the course or have you got an override, right? Or means either or. So both can be true or either one of them could be true and you'll have met the requirements. So if we run this one, have you completed? Let's say no. Did you receive an override, right? If we say no, then the student does not meet the requirements. However, if we flip back over here, right, if the student's taken the course and they did not get an override, that's okay. And just to prove the point, we'll run it a third time. Right? The student, nope, they didn't take it, but they got an override. So or means either or is true. So let's move on to the next one here. So the next one is using a looping command, and we're using a for command. For commands are used when you want to run a piece of code for a specific amount of time that you know. So in this case, we're prompting the user to enter a positive integer. We're assigning it to n. We're assigning a factorial value to 1, or fac. Right? So then for 1 to n, right, whatever that n value is, we're going to take the 1 and multiply it by the k value. So essentially what we're doing is a factorial. So if we had the factorial of 5, that means 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. Right? We're doing this, we know how many times after the user enters the input. So that's what's happening here. So 1 to n, this is going to run. So let's run this, and we'll flip to the command window. So enter a positive integer. If I enter 5, 5 factorial is 120. So let's just flip back here. So if I enter in 6 next, all right, 120 times 6 would be 720. So let's hit 6, and there you go. 6 factorial is 720. We multiplied 120 by 6. Last one from this chapter or this module is adding a while loop. So a while loop is something, so for loop, we know how many times we're doing it. Now we didn't know, and particularly in this case, until the person enters the value in. A while loop, on the other hand, is something we run when we don't know how many times it's going to run. So what we're doing here is we've taken our same little factorial problem where we're asking somebody to enter a value, but remember we said enter a positive integer. So what happens if they enter a negative integer? Well, what happens here, we're doing a check with the while loop, right? So we're doing the same thing, enter a positive integer. Is it greater than or equal to 0, right? If it's not, we say integer cannot be negative, and we loop back and we ask again. So here we go. Let's take a look at an example. So enter a positive integer. So let's enter -8. It's an integer, but it's negative. There's the prompt. Integer cannot be negative. So let's say I say, okay, -9. Nope, integer can't be negative, right? It doesn't know how many times I'm going to be stupid and enter a negative value in, so that's why we use a while loop. Now, if I actually enter the number 5 like we did before, right, we know the answer should be 120, and lo and behold, there it's done the factorial part, and you got the answer of 120. So there you go. There are a number of examples, I think that's 5 examples of how to use while loops, for loops, how to do if statements, and how to do ands and ors. We did an and we did an or as we went through there. And that is essentially the stuff in Module 5. And again, these were all done in Octave.